and welcome to this AI and Era podcast. Here you are here to, uh, as a guest, as a special guest, you are here to, uh, like, to describe how the games are built in the real worlds, and with your vast and a lot of experience in this. So mostly the games are built in and decided by someone, and you are that person who decide to do this games, how it built, how it move, functioning, all about this. So thanks for coming here, and thanks for joining us. Actually, thanks for joining us. Uh,
Sure.
when did you like? My first question is all about this, like about some personal journey of yours. When did you realize you were playing the games? Uh, uh, in your what age you are really playing the game starts, and what's your personal journey?
So, oh boy, that's a good question, a long question. So I've been a gamer in general, all games, video games, board games, since I was a little kid. Ever since I was very young, I could read at a very early age, and uh, I came from a fairly poor family, so we had a local library that had board games, and I used to check out the board games and play those. And I was of an age when video games were just coming onto the scene. I remember mechanical games, which were really interesting at the time. There were before video games, there were mechanical amusement games. So you had pinball on one hand, but you also had very elaborate mechanical games that, if you look them up on Google or YouTube, some of them are really fascinating in how they were built. Usually they used either light, or they used ball bearings or mechanical means for you to engage. These were pre video games. I remember those in the arcades when I was a little kid. And then video games transitioned. So I started out on those mechanical games, and then started playing the video games that were, I remember Pong and Combat, and original Space Invaders and things like that, which were the really big first arcade hits. And I kind of grew up with that, and grew up with arcade games all through the 80s. And that was really, when I came of age was in the mid 80s, and really evolved with that. And then when I got out of college, I decided to give a whirl of making my own games, and I applied to several companies and eventually got hired as a designer. So I've been in the games industry since 1992 professionally. Was when I first started. So it'll be 34 years this year. So I've been involved in the industry for a long, long time, and have seen it evolve pretty heavily from those days.
Interesting, and really I appreciate with your journey. Uh, Mostly the kids, when we are all kids, when we are really appreciate with your, like you were saying, the pinball game is a mechanical game. Yeah, the pinball is also available inside of the Microsoft, I mean, Windows XP. I saw that. Yes, Windows XP. Yeah, this is a childhood. Because the childhood ambitions, I mean, childhood nostalgia feelings are there when the children are playing or kids are playing there. Uh, but today's kid are really passionate about the stories based games like Call of Duty and Rockstar games of the GTA. Uh, so, like, why do most kids dream the same dream mostly?
Hmm. So I guess, could you reword that? Because I'm curious where you're coming from with that. I'm just
Okay, I'm coming from.
Yeah, yeah. Where are you coming from with that? Like, what angle are you, like?
Okay,
What are you trying to understand with that question?
yeah. Like kids are like dreaming, because we know that the nostalgia kids are dreaming different in like mechanical games and pinballs. But
Mm-hmm.
today's kids are looking towards the story-based games like
Yes.
Call of Duty and the GTA. So
Mm-hmm.
why do most kids dreams the same dream?
Ah, well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the gaming industry is so diverse now in terms of the types of games that are out there. I mean, Steam last year, it's kind of scary. Steam launched 20,000 games last year, just under 20,000. That's a lot of games. That's double what it was just in 2020, which it was like 9,000 games in 2020. There are a lot of games out there, and they're all over the map. I come from a storytelling game background. I worked on Bioshock Infinite, I worked on Prey, I worked on Rune. All of those were storytelling games. Um, and but I don't think everyone has the same dream. I think they have similar interests. I used to pride myself wherever I go in the world. Geeks are geeks, and I count myself a geek, so I don't mean that in a negative, pejorative term. Um, it's funny whenever I've gone anywhere around the world, I can always spot who's the gamers are because similar feelings, similar outlooks, similar interests. But within that community, there's such a diversity of interests. I do think at the end of the day, though, the reason people really love storytelling games is because people want to be elevated from their daily lives. You want the chance to be the hero. You want the chance to be the person who's saving the world. You want to be the person, in charge of your own destiny. And I feel like a lot of us on a day to day basis don't feel like we have that kind of control or ability. And games are escapism, pure and simple. And I think narrative games, you get tied into the story, but you also get tied into I'm driving this forward. I'm making this happen. And I think narrative games versus, say, a online multiplayer game where that's a different interest set, that's a different skill set. With story-based games, I think people want that sort of sense of heroism. They want to see themselves being in charge, being in control, and living out that adventure that you just don't get in your daily life. It is an escape from that daily life.
Yes, definitely, and I appreciate with this. Which game you like most to build the story-based games or any
So
computer-based
I
games?
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, what's your favorite game, or which genre is your favorite, and I don't like to do favorites because I'm sort of a consumer of life, and I want to enjoy as much as I can before I go out, before I go out, and so for me, there's things I like. I like strategy. I like RPGs. I like first person shooters. But I try to dabble in a lot of different things, and I like to be surprised. I want to find a new favorite for this week. I have favorites for the moment, rather than I try not to exclude myself, and I try to learn from things. I feel like you can learn a lot from other genres if you are, say, a narrative designer. For instance, like before Call of Duty, I think Call of Duty is a great example. Before Call of Duty, first person shooters were very specific linear stories. Like in the early 90s, mid 90s, you had like your Duke Nukems, fantastic games of those eras. Soldier of Fortune, those types of games, where it was a very linear storyline. The original Jedi Outcast, and those ilk of games. If you go back and play them, they're still really fun, but they have a very linear approach. It's kind of like going through a roller coaster. You're on a set of rails, and it's the fun experience, but it's a specific set of rails. And then I think Call of Duty brought in, well, how do we bring, like I was trying to solve this problem myself back then. I looked at that and I was like, well, how do we take something like Madden football, which is any sports game really. If you look at any sports game, it's 30 minutes of fun, but you want to do it over and over and over and over again. So even every time you play football, it's a different game. Every time you play baseball, it's a different game. It may be the exact same experience in terms of what you are doing, but it is an entirely different experience based on who you're competing with. And I think what Call of Duty did really well was they looked at that sort of thing. So how do we bring a sports ethos to first person shooters? And so I was never really big into sports, never really big into sports games, but I looked at that and I'm like, okay, how can we take things from this genre, bring them over into a genre I really do love, and try to recreate something where, like, because before first person shooters, story narrative first person shooters, you played them, you were done. Next, go on to the next one. You played it, you were done. You didn't really want to go back through and play it over and over again because you did the story, you did the experience. It was a one linear experience. So how do we bring in that ability to make this a fun thing that I want to do over and over and over and over and over again, and not go off onto the next thing? And I think that's Call of Duty was the first one to really do that, and like, okay, let's make this an experience where I'm just playing for 15 minutes with me and my buddies. We're shooting each other up. There is this linear story driven mechanic. Now I think it went too far. I think multiplayer sort of overtook single player to a point. I think the pendulum has swung back now. People are more interested in that linear first person experience. But I think, for a while it swung way too far, and it was just ignoring the story and going straight for the multiplayer, and everyone was trying to outdo each other with that multiplayer mechanic. To me, Halo is a great example because it's a fantastic narrative, but it's also a fantastic multiplayer game. You can't give short shrift to one or the other. I think Call of Duty for a while was giving short shrift to that story experience to chase after that multiplayer experience. And frankly, that's where the money was. So I understand why they did that. But I think for people who, if you played Call of Duty 1 like I did, if you played Call of Duty 2 like I did, you saw a definite evolution away from the narrative towards just that quick moment of fast action. And I think the pendulum is starting to swing back. Last year, especially, they had to. Call of Duty needs to really rethink what they're doing, because after they've had a 22-year run, I think, of being the top dog. And last year, in the last couple of years, really their sales are starting to go down, and they're starting to figure out, okay, we gotta change this up. And I think tastes evolve and change. I think people were really into the multiplayer for a long time, but now I think a lot of players are like, hey, what about that story driven? What about that? I want to be the hero. You can't be the hero if I'm playing against 20 other guys who are way better than me, who are kicking my butt. I want to be the hero once in a while. So now it's swinging back. Okay, I want to be the narrative leader in this game that I'm playing.
It was like interesting and really enthusiastic towards this, because when you tell that like linear approach, you should be higher and doing some creativity and story based line of the Call of Duty. It's really interesting. Today's students who is in a university, they want to learn game development actually. Uh, how they start, and is it good in this AI approachable world to learn the game development? Is it a right time?
Yeah, I do think so. I think so AI is scaring everybody because everybody thinks their jobs are going away forever. Um, for some people, that may be true. For others, it may not. I think ultimately, creative decision, creative control, and new cool ideas are going to come from people. I view AI as a tool set. So if I was telling a new student who, hey, I want to learn video games, first thing I would say is play games, but look at them analytically. Don't just play it. Don't let it just happen. Try to analytically look at the game and see what people are doing. Try to devolve that game, break it down into its component parts. Why is the things I like working? Why are the things I don't like not working? So think about it in an analytical mind. When I was in college, I was a film minor, and film critique was one of my areas that I studied. And once you start looking at movies critically, you look at them differently. Like, how did I do that shot? How did they set that up? How did they? And it changes how you look at movies. You have to do that with video games as well. You have to really say, okay, why did they do what they did? Hey, I don't like this. Why don't I like it? What's going on here that I don't like? So I think that's the first thing. Be a critical analyst of what the games are that you play and see kind of what they're doing. study, like if you're in a first person shooter and you're looking at, and you're in a narrative first person shooter and the enemy is doing certain things, stop shooting, just stand there or duck so you're not getting shot, and watch what the enemy's doing. What are they doing? And watch their behaviors, see what they're, like, okay, what is the designer thinking? What are they trying? What are they trying to do to create the experience that I'm currently making? Um, then make stuff. There's no substitute for getting out there and making games. I think you have to actually break a few things, screw up some stuff, make a few things, and have other people play it and let them critique you. Oh, excuse me. All of a sudden, I got a cough.
Sure, sure.
Um, but I think there is no substitute for just doing stuff. Now, in terms of can AI help you in that? Well, AI is great at distilling things. I'm looking at AI as a teaching tool, and it can distill things down for you personally. You can say, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. Explain to the AI, like, okay, here's where I'm having trouble. Can you break it down, make it simple for me? And AI, I think as developers start integrating those types of tools, the kinds of things that actually help you as a user. So I think a lot of AI right now is chasing at rainbows that just aren't there. I think if you look at bigger companies are spending all this money on AI, and like a lot of the AI that's out there is more intrusive than assistant. And I want you to help me the way I want you to help me. I don't want you to just be like a nagging cousin who's standing in the corner yelling at you that you're screwing things up, or hey, do it this way, or it's almost like if you remember Clippy back in the day in the old if you were in Word and Clippy would come up and hey, you're doing this, and it got very annoying. And I think a lot of AI right now is at that stage where they're trying to force it into things that just aren't helpful. Where I think it's really helpful is breaking down things into simpler components so you can understand them. And when I want that help, for instance, I'm a creative writer. I love to write. I would never use AI to write. I know a lot of people who aren't really good writers will just go to ChatGPT and say, give me a story about a dog and a horse and blah blah blah, and it'll spit it out. I find that as a writer, I would never want that. I would never want to use that. I like to write. I like to slap some words down. And I notice AI is really intrusive. If I'm doing creative writing, it's annoying as hell because it's telling me, well, you shouldn't structure your sentence this way. And it's like, well, I'm creative writing. I'm writing prose. I'm not writing a business application. I'm not writing for a corporate structure. I'm writing creatively to experiment with word structure and sentence structure. So go away, leave me alone. And where I might want to use AI is, hey, could you just look and see if I'm screwing words up, which frankly we've had for 30 years. The little red squiggly line under the words that you've misspelled, or we've had spell correct for a long, long time now. I don't need AI telling me, well, you should really structure your sentence differently. And it's like, well, no, if I'm creative writing, maybe you should let me do what I want to do. And because I think a lot of great creative writing comes from changing sentence structures, changing how you present information. And in prose, it's a very different way of writing than if I'm writing a report that I'm going to hand off to a professor. That's a very different style of writing. I might need help from AI for that, but I personally, as a writer, I love to write. So when AI is intruding on that activity, it drives me crazy. But if I wasn't a good writer, okay, sure, maybe that's helpful. But as a creative writer, it just drives me crazy. But I think for students, what I would do is like learn Unreal. I think Unreal is I love Unreal, but a lot of people, whether you love it or hate it, it is the biggest dog out there. It's the thing that I think you can at least start from and learn. And there's so many good tutorials out there. There's great videos on YouTube. There's great, fairly cheap courses you can get online. You could have AI assist you in, okay, how do I make a room? Okay, and AI will help you figure out how to make a room in Unreal and how to light it and how to put creatures there. There are so many other really good tools coming. Godot, a lot of people are getting into. Unity is still around. I think a lot of people are looking at Godot kind of being a Unity killer. I don't know. I feel like there's room for all of them. Um, there are still people out there who want to write their own engines and their own development tools. So, I think there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm interested that I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially outside the United States, for new game development. A lot of I've just been reading a bunch of reports the last couple of days on where things are at in the games industry. Hiring is starting up again, but unfortunately, a lot of it's outside the United States, at least fortunate for people I know. Um, but I think that's a great opportunity. The global South is starting to pick up. Big time in terms of how many games are being produced, how games are being produced, where opportunities are coming from. I think in places like India and Dubai and Africa and South America, you're starting to see people start to tell their own stories and start to really create their own games. And hey, I want to put my stamp on this. And there's a market there that I think has been untapped because while Call of Duty is a globally built game, it kind of someone from India or someone from Africa might want to write a very different game in that ilk than what Call of Duty is providing. And I think that provides interesting opportunities. China has been coming on very strongly the last couple of years, coming out with some really interesting games that have a worldwide impact. And I think that's where things are interesting. I think a lot of games are going to be coming from global south that are going to have a much bigger impact on the world market, not just on their local regional markets. So I think there are some really cool opportunities there. And so I would say if you're a student in those places, especially, I think there's some interesting opportunities there moving forward.
I appreciate this answer and really hopeful for this. That different kind of engines are here, like Unreal Engine, Unity, and a new thing also add in this year, Blender. Is
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Blender is good for the animators, and people are also eagerly to learn this because they can easily build some stuffs like character animation and different kinds of objects they can make. Is there any
Absolutely.
difference of the Unity, Unreal, and Blender to use these softwares?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the neat things to happen over the last few years is how trying to see what would the best word for this be. I guess the most democratic, egalitarian thing to happen in the industry is the distribution of tool sets. I think when I first started out, you had to have a seat of Maya, and it would cost you $10,000 for a seat of Maya. And the computer you ran it on, which was a Silicon Graphics machine, costs between $40,000 and $100,000, depending on the how much you wanted to load it up. So that was a huge barrier to entry for anyone who wanted to get into animation. You couldn't no kid sitting at home was going to be able to just start getting on Maya in a Silicon Graphics box and start making stuff. Nowadays, you have so many free tools. I mean, Unreal, you can download it tomorrow, start making a game. You can download it today, start making a game. Doesn't cost you a dime. Blender, you can download it right now, start learning it, start making animations. Doesn't cost you a dime. There's so many great art tools out there that are for free, and I think it's both upsetting the apple cart in terms of things like Acrobat and or Adobe, I should say. You got Photoshop and how expensive that is, and all these new services that want to take money from you every month. Well, now you've got free tools that are fantastic. That don't cost you a dime, that people are supporting on their own. They're keeping up with the Joneses. Sometimes they're passing them with new features. And over time, due to feedback, they get better and better in terms of how their interfaces work. Blender's been actually around a long, long time. I've known about Blender for decades, really. And early on, its interface was somewhat confusing. A lot of artists who were in 3D Max or Maya really didn't like utilizing Blender's tools. But over the years, those tools have evolved. And I think Blender now is a fantastic tool for, especially for people who want to get into it and You just have a laptop and a seat of blender, and you can start making stuff right away. You can get better at it, send it out, get feedback, get tips and tricks from other people online who are also learning it, or who are experts in it. I think uh, the access to tools has gotten so much better globally for people who want to learn. You no longer have to have this huge barrier of entry of just getting the hardware and software. If you the hardware is harder to get a hold of, but if you have it, and a lot of these tools trickle down to even fairly low powered machines, so you can at least learn. You can't do real complicated stuff, but you can at least learn on it, and until you get to a point where you're able to afford better hardware. And I think that's a huge difference than, say, when I started out, when you had to put down a fair amount of money just to learn the tools because there was no access to them.
Yes, definitely. The Maya is also a very huge at that time. It's so expensive also. Here is around 1 lakh rupees. I have to give to the Maya to learn the people learn the Maya was 1 lakh, which is very huge at that time. So uh, mostly the programming languages. People are hurdles about the programming languages, what programming languages they should know, and how they implement to the physics. What programming languages they should know for the game development in 2026 up to 2020, 30, up to like in this
Sure.
4 years.
I think that's a world that's changing rapidly right now. Even so, my knowledge is even dated a couple of years of being a couple of years out of date, is already becoming dated because it's changing so quickly. I think you can't go wrong by learning C, C++. I think if you are a more advanced programmer, C sharp if you want to stick to a more scripted style of language. Um, but there are so many other languages coming out and coming up that things are changing very rapidly. I know a lot of programmers, most of them, have a core knowledge of C and C++. Most of them, or C sharp, depending on who they are and what their focus is. But a lot of them have interests in a lot of really obscure languages or up and coming languages that they want to learn. And I think it's becoming less relevant in terms of the languages because of the onset of AI. And that's the scary thing about AI, and I guess the cool thing about AI at the same time is that it evolves so much faster than you think. Uh, if you haven't looked at a tool in 6 months, it's probably evolved way beyond that. So if people will be like, oh, I dabbled in AI and it didn't make any sense and I didn't like it. Well, okay, when did you do that? Well, a year ago. Well, things have dramatically changed in the last year. And the newest generation of AI was released at the beginning of February, and it's already having a big impact. I know programmers are like, I just tell AI what I want and it writes code for me. And then I have it the new bit that's really interesting is it's starting to analyze the code and then evolve it and making decisions on that code and actually iterating that code. It's not just giving you, okay, here you go. It's taking it, iterating it, saying, oh, this doesn't work. It's doing its own QA on it and then improving it and then spitting that out. You let it run overnight and it comes back to you. I'm not personally a coder. That scares the hell out of me because I feel like if I was a coder, I'd want to learn that tool set pretty quick so that I can control it rather than it controlling me. And a lot of coders are telling me for the first time it went from, oh, that's an interesting novelty to, oh, God, this could really eat my lunch. I better understand it better. So I think that world is evolving very, very quickly. And I think you're probably going to see languages come up. I mean, there's things like people do Python scripting and Java scripting. And uh, I had one programmer who was mad about Ruby on Rails and loved it. I think individually, if you're a coder, you'll be drawn to languages that you really enjoy. But I think learning the core of C and C++ and C sharp are really that's sort of the triangle I would start from.
Yeah, like appreciate with your answer. most probably people are really be enthusiastic toward the programming language. Mostly, I'm also facing, and people are also facing, and to know that people step into the game development, learn the things, and but at the time when he feels the hurdle is there, now no, I have to structure the architecture and to know about some physics, maths, and to development all the animation projects. Their hurdle and fear more. So, which game you like most and why?
What game do I like most and why? Well,
Yes,
like I said, I'm not. I try not to have favorites because I want to enjoy as much of life as I can. Right now, the games that I'm really into, I have a probably um, bad addiction to Age of Empires 4. I play that way too much. I really enjoy that game. I don't know why. I wasn't even. I liked Age of Empires 1 and 2, but I wasn't huge into them. I liked Age of Empires 3 before. Just I don't know what about it. It just keeps drawing me back. I play the hell out of that game. I worked on MechWarrior in the back in the day, so I enjoy MechWarrior 5. I kind of have a love hate relationship for it because I didn't work on it, but I worked on one of the earlier ones, and there's stuff where I'm like, oh man, those guys really kicked ass with this. That's awesome. And I look at other parts of it, I'm like, why didn't they do this? That drives me crazy. So I play that. What else? I'm a big RPG fan. I like playing different stuff. I've been going back through and playing some older stuff like Lunar the Silver Star and like some of the older RPGs. I just replayed Suikoden 1 recently, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, those are old classics. I'm a big retro player since I was, I lived that era, but there were certain games I didn't really get around to, or that I want to get back to, or stuff that I just really enjoyed that I haven't played in a long time. I got a Atari Game Station Go, so I could go back and play all the old Atari games, and really enjoying that. But I try not to have a absolute favorite. I mean, there's stuff that had influences on me over the years. When I first got started in the industry, there was a game back in '86, I want to say, called Defender of the Crown, which really blew my mind in terms of the graphics at that time. I mean, if you look at it now, it looks very dated, but back at that time, the graphics were mind blowing, and it really opened my eyes to what you could do with storytelling in a game visually, and that had a huge influence on me back in the day. But yeah, I try not to have one like favorite because there's just so many good games out there. I want to get to as many as I can.
I appreciate with this. Your enthusiasm towards the games it creates really, and you are an executive officer of your game company, which his name is retired video game company. I hope so. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I retired recently from I was COO at Lost Boys Interactive in here in the United States. We were an outsourced company that worked on a number of different games. We worked on the WWE series. We worked on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. We worked on boy, I'm having a complete brain melt now. We worked on Homeworld 3. We worked on Diablo 4. So we worked on a number of games at Lost Boys. And recently I retired because I decided we sold our company to Embracer back in 2022, and I stayed on for a few years, but decided, I want to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. What am I doing in the new chapter? Probably involved in video games in some way, but I'm mainly now going around doing talks and talking to students, and I'm also an entrepreneur and investing in various different game opportunities.
I appreciate your journey, sir. I read about you about your description inside of the LinkedIn. Actually, you are observing to the world and writing something right and read about this. This is a
Yeah,
really holistic. Yes, sir. This is really inspiring the students and all the ages of the people.
Yeah, I hope
And
so. Because I want to see what other people come up with. And I love talking to students because I love to see the excitement of what they want to do. And I'm a gamer too, so I want to see what games they come out with. I want to be entertained by the things that they come up with. And I've always been a fan of. I'm a big lover of world history and world culture and myths, and I love each region's mythology, and I want to see how people bring that to life and how they bring their stories to the world.
yeah, I appreciate, sir. Thank you so much for coming here and really this part of the podcast show. And I amazingly meet with a one person who is really Timothy Gerritsen, like means you, and learn from you today. Is a huge life is huge, and you just to be observe everything, create forward in life. Thank you so much for here, and thanks
Sure,
for joining
absolutely.
us. Thanks for joining us, sir. And
Yeah, thank you.
I love to podcast with you. So now I want to stop this podcast for the recording. For the
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.